Yeah, I'm happy to stay up here. We're going to need to practice this bit.
Set in London at the end of the 19th century, The Nevers revolves around a group of individuals called Touched, each of whom has a different superpower. This HBO show had people excited before the first episode even aired and was originally slated to run for 10 episodes before filming complications arose due to the pandemic. This led to the decision to split the first series into 2 parts, 6 episodes each. Part 1 saw reasonable success, receiving worldwide recognition in 2020, and with Part 2 sure to be on the way, it's time to take a look at what fans can expect to see in The Nevers Season 1 Part 2. But before we get into the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel with your notifications on so that you don't miss any of the new videos posts. Number 1. What happened in Season 1 Part 1? The Nevers Season 1 Part 1 kicked off 3 years after an inexplicable event suddenly equipped the individual's extraordinary ability. Amalia True and Penance Adair work to protect their kind of widespread, deepening antipathy, while police investigator Frank Mundy seeks to figure out the string of murders at the hands of a reported Touched and a slightly dangerous serial killer named Malady. In Episode 2, with the city reeling from Malady's opera debut, Mundy takes a personal stake in tracking her down and putting her wrath to an end once and for all. Amalia launches an investigation of her own, and later in the episode, the charitable Lavinia Bidlow seeks to destigmatize the Touched at a society event. The Nevers started out as period drama with a light sci-fi touch to it, but by the end of Part 1, we were headfirst into an extraterrestrial world-saving plot. During the mid-season finale, all of the odd occurrences and hints surrounding the character Amalia True were finally explained, and it turns out she's not who we thought she was after all. We come to find out that her real name is Zephyr Alexis Naveen, and she's a worker at the Planetary Defense Coalition, an armed force tasked with protecting the alien Galanthi in Earth's apocalyptic future. When Zephyr commits suicide in the future, the Galanthi takes her soul through a portal into 1890 London, where she finds herself in the body of the indebted banker Molly. The series ends with Amalia, or Zephyr, revealing her true name to Penance and preparing to reveal the rest to the orphanage, leaving us with quite the cliffhanger heading into Season 1 Part 2. Next up is the cast for The Nevers Season 1 Part 2. With numerous storylines still in progress for the popular TV series and many just getting started, we can expect to see the majority of the cast members from Part 1 return for Part 2. Some of the most notable characters we can expect are the members of The Touched. Laura Donnelly is surely set to return as Amalia Molly True, given the revelations in Episode 6, and should remain one of the show's characters. Donnelly is well known for her performance in The Ferryman, Outlander, Britannia, The Fall, and multiple other popular TV series. And Skelly is also expected to be a part of The Nevers Season 1 Part 2 in her role as Penance Adair, the moral backbone of The Touched and Amalia's best friend. Zackary Momoh, who plays Dr. Horatio Cousins, and Kyron Sonia Sawar, who plays Harry Power, are also like to return to the show. It's also likely that we'll see Amy Manson, Malady, appear in Part 2 due to the way her story ended in Part 1. However, beyond that, the non-Touched members of the show should also have significant roles in the ongoing storyline. Inspector Frank D remains an essential part of the story, despite Mary's death, as the show's big, rough, and deeply moral detective who is not shy of sudden violence or excessive drinking, while Olivia Williams, who plays Lavinia Bidlow, is another character that would be tough to imagine the show without. Not to mention some of the antagonists from Touched, like Pip Torrens, Lord Gilbert Masson, and Nick Ross, the Beggar King, and Denis O'Hare, Dr. Edmund Haig, should play major roles in plot development for Season 1 Part 2 of The Nevers. And then there's the expected release date. Part 1 of The Nevers was released on April 11, 2021, with the producers of the show looking to split the series 2 parts. With that being said, there has been no official release date announced for the second part of The Nevers Season 1, but there have been some potential clues as to when fans can expect the newest installment to drop. One important thing to note is that the show technically hasn't begun shooting the second half of the season yet due to the pandemic. Even at the end of Part 1, it was only able to film the first 5 episodes before production halted from the coronavirus pandemic, with the show then filming last episode in October 2020. Another factor to consider for the release date of Part 2 is that the show's pre-production and post-production processes are extremely extensive and time-consuming. The primary reason for this is the fact that the show is set in Victorian-era London, so everything from the costume department to the production department needs to be on the same page for the show to run smoothly and accurately represent the time period. However, what also adds to the complexity of the show is the science fiction scattered throughout, which require high-quality special effects that can only be done after the show's done filming. This is all on top of the fact that the show underwent a huge transition behind the scenes after Part 1, series showrunner Joss Whedon stepping down in November 2020 and replaced by Philippa Goslett, known for writing the films Little Ashes, How to Talk to Girls at Parties, and Mary Magdalene. Such a major decision can certainly lead to some alterations in the general direction of the show, which might create more need for rewrites and restructuring before filming resumes, which is why we might have to wait until midway through 2022 before we get to see the 6 remaining episodes. And finally, the projected plot for The Nevers Season 1 Part 2. Part 1 of the first season ended with a number of cliffhangers, but none bigger than the revelation that Amalia was actually a soldier from the future named Zephyr, and Galanthe was actually an alien race that had arrived on Earth to help humans. Part 1 ended with Amalia revealing her true identity to Penance, with the initial intention of telling every member of the orphanage that was touched about who she really was, which is why we can expect Part 2 to most likely deal with the ramifications of this news, as surely not only will the members of Touched have cope with the idea that aliens exist, but they'll also have to come to terms with the fact that the Galanthe's arrival has made them the way that they are. There's a very good chance that different characters are going to have different reactions to both pieces of information, which should dramatically shift the scopes. Another major revelation at the end of the 5th episode, Hang, was that Malady had not actually hanged herself as it had initially appeared. Inspector Mundy was the only person to make the realization that the dead woman was actually not Malady, while journalist Effie Boyle turned out to be Malady in disguise all along. Malady is free and has proven that she can come up with and execute on sophisticated plans, showing how she may take advantage of the element of surprise going forward. Given that she holds a grudge against Amalia for selling her out when they were both in the asylum, it's possible that Amalia and the orphanage could be her next target. Malady was already a dangerous force both for the Touched and for Londoners as a whole when everyone was aware of her presence, so her fake out is sure to lead people lowering their guards, making her an even more dangerous villain for Part 2. Plus, Amalia's fallout with Best should give Lucy and Malady something in common now, and it's even possible that 2 members of the Touched will align with one another. Also in the 5th episode, a crack appeared in the Glanthsalis, indicating that the healing alien may finally be close to emerging. Dr. Haig has been excavating the Glanthe, an operation bankrolled by a nervous Lavinia Bidlow, and they have plans to move the chrysalis far from London to secure a location before it opens. This may not only make it impossible for Amalia to find Glanthe again, but it may also put the Glanthe in the sadistic grasp of Dr. Haig, who's sure to do terrible things with it. We can also expect Lord Manson to continue his plot against the Touched Part 2. Lord Manson has worked against the Touched since they first appeared, with his belief being that they're against the natural order, and he therefore must take action to ensure they remain oppressed and feared by the public. This led him to kill the Touched singer Mary Bright and to team up with the Beggar King to ensure there would be chaos surrounding Malady's execution so they could blame it on the Touched. He's also managed to get laws passed that required the Touched to register and wear bows in public so people can identify them, and it's unlikely Manson is done yet. While it's hard to say what his next will be, it seems inevitable that he'll need to try and take down the Touched, especially Amalia. And with that, it wraps up the video. Thanks for watching.